Hello guys, this is Trinity Storm here and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do 10th part of Naruto the Unknown Dojutsu. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Also don't forget to follow me on my other social media handles. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
So this guy is the signal, right? Naruto thought to himself as he stared Gaara down. Well, thanks for the info, Mika. I now have more than one reason to beat him up. Tell the old man about it. He can handle this situation however he sees fit, as long as I get to deal with Gaara. A Jinchuriki versus a Jinchuriki. Mika appeared terrified of what Naruto had just said from above in the skies. Are you insane, Naruto? What makes you think you can take on a monster like him by yourself? Don't you dare to boast about your abilities. She exclaimed. I can feel a connection with him, Mika. He explained. It's as if my body is telling me to reach out a hand to him. Mika exhaled a sigh. Explain. Listen, he, like me, is a Jinchuriki. We've been subjected to the same treatment as our villages. He may be the Kage's son, but despite his siblings' presence, I believe he still feels alone. And because we've shared similar experiences throughout our lives, I believe I understand what he's going through. He needs someone to reach out to him and understand how he feels on the inside. And how are you going to face him by yourself? Have you learned any jutsu that will allow you to defeat that boy? Oh, I'm not doing this alone. I've got you. Naruto exclaimed happily. Mika's eyes widened. And me? Are you telling me I have to? Naruto cut her off before she could continue. I don't need you to go attack him. I need you to fly with me once Gaara has fully transformed into Shukaku. If I just fly my meteor normally, it will deplete my levels too quickly. My jutsus will be much more maneuverable and easier to use with you carrying. And you can stay here for as long as you want, right? Mika sighed in defeat and replied, good point. I just hope your recklessness doesn't lead to our deaths. I don't intend to die anytime soon. Sure thing. Said Naruto, grinning. Alright, I'll go talk to Hokage-sama and tell him what you said. I'll continue to watch your match so I know when that boy fully transforms into his tailed beast form. Good luck, Naruto. She said as she cut off their connection. Naruto returned his attention to reality just in time to see that dozens of small bullet-like sand projectiles were about to strike him. It was fortunate that he had trained his reflexes over the previous month. As a result, he was able to roll out of the way and save himself. The blonde looked at Gaara, who had a maniacal expression on his face. What the hell? He exclaimed. Why did you attack me when I wasn't prepared? You swindler. Suna no Dongan, sand bullets, Gaara said as his newly transformed body emitted hundreds of small sand spheres that flew at breakneck speed towards Naruto. It was the jutsu he used to catch Naruto off guard earlier. Oh, so that's what he used on me, Naruto mused as he simply ducked to avoid the sand. Raisei, meteor, he exhaled, flying towards Gaara with incredible speed before delivering a powerful back kick boosted by his own speed. The force of the attack caused Gaara to collapse on his stomach, which enraged him even more. But as soon as he stood up, the blonde hit him with a right hook. The redhead quickly recovered and attempted to strike Naruto with his mutated right arm, but the blonde caught it perfectly. Naruto's body began to glow brightly, indicating the activation of his meteor. Get ready for a wild ride, Gaara. He exclaimed, before spinning around like Neji with his rotation, the sand arm users firmly in his grasp. After a few seconds, the pair appeared to the audience as a swirling tornado due to Naruto's spinning, until finally, with a scream, the blonde let go of Gaara's arm, throwing him like a ragdoll into the arena's walls, causing a medium-sized hole and smoke covering the area as he crashed. Naruto wiped the sweat from his brow as he clasped his two hands together once more. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. he exclaimed, creating over 20 copies of himself beside and in front of him. "Let's go finish this!" exclaimed the original as they all charged towards their foe. Efton. Mugen Sajin Daitopa. Wind release. Infinite sandstorm, screamed Gaara from behind the smoke created by his earlier crash. Suddenly, a cloud of sand began to zoom out from there at breakneck speed, heading towards Naruto. Much to his surprise, the sand cloud alone was able to wipe out all of his clones faster than he could muster, and unfortunately for him, he was too distracted by the unexpected event to notice the jutsu as well. Gaara's jutsu knocked Naruto off his feet and sent him stumbling a few feet back, but he quickly got back up. He looked up to see Gaara emerge unscathed from the hole in the wall, causing Naruto to mentally curse for not being able to harm the redhead with his attack. Gaara's mutated right arm suddenly extended until it could reach Naruto from above. As he got further away from his owner, his arm turned into nothing but sand, and it also grew larger. The redhead clenched his right fist and lunged at Naruto, intending to crush the blonde on the ground. Naruto reacted quickly, creating 2 energy beams on his palms. Uchten. Sinaru Bakuf. Space release. Holy blast. He yelled, hurling one of the beams at Gaara's arm, which exploded into plain sand. He then threw the other one at the redhead's forearm, which exploded as well. While Gaara was regaining control of his arm, Naruto took advantage and charged forward before performing the horse hand seal. Uchten. Kinboshi no I. Space release. Venus's love. He exhaled a continuous stream of fire at the redhead, who did nothing to counter it, instead taking the attack head-on. He was instantly engulfed in flames. The blonde came to a halt and decided to step it up to ensure his jutsu made an impression. Efton. Daitopa. Great breakthrough in wind release. He directed a strong gust of wind at his adversary, enhancing the flames burning around Gaara. To put it another way, his flames have grown even larger and hotter than before. Due to the heat and light generated by Naruto's attack, some members of the audience began to close their eyes, while others left their seats in the hopes of avoiding the flames. Naruto's jutsu changed the temperature of the entire arena, making it even hotter than before. Genma began to wonder if it was still safe to enter the arena after Naruto and Gaara's fight, becoming slightly concerned about what might happen to himself. Uzumaki. Roared the mutated redhead, extinguishing the flames that were burning him alive at the time. When he became visible to the rest of the world, it was clear that he had been scorched by Naruto's attack, with massive burns all over his body. The incredible thing was that some parts of him were still trying to reform with the sand, but the leftover fire from the blonde's combined jutsus was still there, destroying Gaara's sand as it was reforming. Gaara, on the other hand, came out of that last attack unscathed. He would have died by now if it hadn't been for Shukaku's efforts to maximize his abilities. Good, I'm almost there with that Tanuki, Naruto thought as he pulled out a kunai. I hope this does it. He then directed wind chakra at his weapon, making it even more lethal than before. I'm not sure if this sharpens it, but let's assume it does. And now I wait. The blonde was immediately enveloped in yellow light as he flew straight through the redhead's arm, passing through it the second Gaara moved his right arm to attack Naruto. He yelled, Raisei Setsuden. Meteor slice. It happened in less than 2 seconds. Naruto was a few feet away from Gaara when he suddenly found himself behind the redhead, thrusting out his kunai as the yellow light surrounding his body vanished into the air. The blonde wore a feral expression, his teeth bared, his eyes gleaming, and his breathing was erratic. He was acting like an animal at the time. He appeared to be the legendary Tobirama Senju, who was currently dealing with Izuna Uchiha. Gaara, the mutated, had a shocked expression on his face. His lips were drooping and his eyes were wide open. As the blonde dropped his stance and turned around to look at Gaara, he slowly turned his head to look at Naruto from behind him. The redhead then looked down at his right arm, which was still hyperextended. Crack, 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 crack. The sand that had encircled his entire arm had fallen to the ground, revealing Gaara's own right shoulder. Blood spurted from a medium-sized cut on his shoulder, and some of it made its way to the redhead's face, causing Gaara to shiver violently while Naruto smiled triumphantly, finally wounding his enemy after countless attempts. In the stands. I can't believe it. Temari trailed off, speechless. He literally got Gaara. Kankuro stammered, unable to comprehend what had just occurred. Go for it, Naruto. Kick his asterisk asterisk asterisk. Sakura screamed in solidarity with her friend. How did that Dobi get so close to him? He was dominating the battle earlier, but he couldn't even inflict an injury on that guy. Sasuke stroking his chin, trying to figure out what was going on in the fight below. He used wind chakra on his kunai to cut his enemy, Kakashi said, drawing everyone's attention. How long have you been here? Asuma inquired, raising an eyebrow at his fellow journalist. Wasn't Kakashi supposed to leave earlier? I just got back, he explained, rubbing the back of his neck. Anyway, as I previously stated, Naruto enhanced his own kunai with wind chakra to make it sharper than before. And because he used his meteor to attack his opponent, his speed increased to the point where it appeared as if he passed through Gaara himself, but in reality, he made his attack swift and steady. Damn. I don't know what to expect from that brat anymore, Zabuza said, shaking his head and laughing. But I don't care what he's doing as long as I win bets with him on the line. Wind chakra, huh? Asuma asked, lighting another cigarette. I'm starting to be interested in this student of yours, Kakashi. Is it too much trouble to ask if I could teach him about the wind chakra these days? That's perfectly fine with me. Not a problem. Kakashi responded without hesitation. In the cage box. Good God, Hiruzen exclaimed as he saw Naruto wound Gaara with only a kunai in his hand. The technique he used reminds me of Minato-kun. He exclaimed, laughing. For a split second, I thought he was doing the Hiraishin. Being Hokage, even in my old age, must have its advantages. Meanwhile, the cage remained silent throughout. Orochimaru was deep in thought beneath the mask, wondering when he should give the signal to begin the invasion. He'd just gotten word from his spy, Kabuto Yakushi, that Suna's main forces were just outside the village, hidden and waiting for orders. Their secret weapon for victory was Gaara transforming into his tailed beast form, which could happen at any moment. However, Konoha's reputation as the strongest of the 5 nations was not without reason. They'll always have something up their sleeve. In the arena, Gaara shivered as if he was cold until he burst out laughing maniacally. Temari and Kankuro immediately jumped down towards the arena and ran past Naruto, heading towards their brother, causing murmurs of confusion from nearly everyone in the audience. The blonde decided not to stop them because he wanted to see how they handled their unstable sibling. Blood spurted from the mutated Gaara's wound once more as he turned his head to look at Naruto, stunned. You showed me my blood. He muttered quietly as Temari and Kankuro charged towards him with determined expressions. You showed me my blood, he said a little louder, and his 2 siblings exchanged glances as they grasped the redhead's mutated abdominal area. Because Gaara's stomach appeared to be larger than usual, Temari took his right side, while Kankuro took his left. You showed me my blood. He exclaimed as Temari and Kankuro jumped at the same time, eliciting gasps of confusion and disgust from the audience because the direction of their jump was outside of the arena, implying Gaara was cheating in the audience's eyes. You showed me my blood. He yelled as the peak of his siblings' jump reached the last row of chairs where civilians were watching. A few Konoha Chunins scattered around the area began throwing kunais and shurikens at the sand trio, but Gaara's tail automatically took all of the hits. You did show me my blood. Gaara roared, but his tone had completely changed. He used to speak in his normal voice, but now he speaks as if he were a monster. As of now, the three siblings have vanished from the arena, leaving Naruto and Genma as the only ones left on the battlefield. That voice. Kurama said from inside Naruto's head. That was unmistakably Shukaku's voice saying, "He's here." That Gaara kid gave him control of his body. Really? A perplexed Naruto asked. Of course, he had no idea because he was still new to everything pertaining to the tailed beasts. I'm confident of it. You should get Mika by your side right now because I believe the kid is about to transform and I recall you saying you needed her by your side. Alright, I'll just wait for her. Naruto responded, raising an eyebrow at the audience. Everything had gone silent since Gaara had left the stadium with Temari and Kankuro, which was perplexing. He then noticed that almost everyone had fallen asleep, with the exception of Kakashi, Guy, Asuma, Zabuza, Kurenai, and Genma, who was right in front of him. Hiruzen, like his 4 bodyguards, was wide awake in the cage box. Wait, except for Kakashi-sensei and the other Junin teachers, why is everyone asleep? Someone used genjutsu. The person who did it must have some skill to be able to put this many people to sleep. How come I'm not affected? Kurama shook his head. I fought it earlier for you while you were staring at that Gaara kid and his siblings. Gee, thanks, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his neck. Save it. Just concentrate on what is happening right now or you will be killed. Naruto nodded and returned his attention to the real world. However, as soon as he became aware of his surroundings, the ground began to shake in the manner of an earthquake. Naruto tried to maintain his balance, and the shaking abruptly stopped after a few seconds. What the hell is going on? He wondered, before looking up to see Mika flying down towards him. Is there any news? Naruto inquired. The Sans forces are preparing to launch an attack on the village. Orochimaru will be dealt with by Hokage-sama himself. As we speak, Kakashi-san is leading our own forces. Do you mean he left a clone here with us? Mika gave a nod. Okay, excellent timing. I need you to be there for me. Gaara is about to transform at any moment, and we must. Before he could finish his sentence, they heard a loud roar in the distance. That's Shukaku, Mika said, turning their heads in the direction where they heard the roar. Wow, he's already transformed? Shaking his head, Naruto remarked. Come on, let's get going. He looked at Mika and patted his shoulders, motioning for her to carry him, and she went behind his head, grabbing his shoulders by his feet. However, they were unable to take off right away. As he stared at Naruto and the phoenix behind him, Genma's eyes were wide open and his mouth was hanging open. He'd heard stories about such creatures, but to see one of his own fellow shinobi conversing with one so casually is unfathomable. Some of his own saliva began to drip from his mouth until he felt a small rock hit his cheek. He shook his head, noticing Naruto's embarrassed grin. Look, I'm sorry about this, Mr. Proctor. Exclaimed Naruto as Mika began to lift him off the ground, widening Genma's eyes even more. Everything will be explained later. We must win this war right now. He finished ahead of him, and Mika flew away from the arena, toward the outskirts of the village where Gaara was. I think I'm dreaming. Genma pondered before shaking his head. Wonderful, I can see everything from here. Naruto exclaimed as he took in the scene below him. Mika had carried him while flying for the second time. Normally, he'd use his meteor to get around, but having his partner carry him around has its own advantages, such as being able to get around slower than when he uses meteor. Because his jutsu is too fast for Naruto to even get a good look at his surroundings, which is the only disadvantage of the meteor. Mika then let go of him, causing him to fall. He screamed briefly before Mika snatched him up again. As he looked up at the phoenix, he grabbed both of her legs in fear. What the hell was that for? He exclaimed, a tick mark forming on his brow. Keep your eyes on your adversary, Naruto, she warned, smirking. Unless you want me to let you go once more? Naruto flushed. No, I'm fine. Just don't drop me, please? He begged, making Mika laugh at his own folly. They passed through the entire village, seeing all of the shinobi from Suna and being surprised to see that the enemy forces didn't even number 1,000. They both had very different reactions to it. While Mika was relieved that they wouldn't have to face as many enemies, Naruto was enraged because he believes the Sand Village is underestimating them. Both were correct in their own ways, but Naruto was overly concerned about what the enemy was planning. They eventually saw Gaara far beyond the outskirts of Konoha. But he wasn't the same as he had been. In his place was a nearly 80-foot-tall tanuki with strange markings all over his body and a single tail that appeared to have scales. Shukaku was none other than the Ichibi himself. Looks like he's already transformed, Naruto observed, earning Mika's nod. And look at who's standing on his big shoulder, he said angrily, looking at the unmistakable figures of Temari and Kankuro standing on the beast's left shoulder. No doubt they'll try to stop you now that they know how dangerous you are to their brother, Mika said as she abruptly stopped moving forward to assess the situation. How do you intend to deal with those two? Shukaku turned his gaze from the village to the blonde and his partner while Naruto was stumped trying to think. The massive-tailed beast began to laugh as he threw his enormous right arm out, sending a massive wave of sand the size of him towards his foe. You showed my blood, Uzumaki. He yelled. Naruto reacted quickly going through some hand seals, and then looked up at his summon. Can you please give this a big power-up? He asked. Roger, she said with a nod. Naruto returned his attention to the sand, which was rapidly approaching. He inhaled deeply. Kaden. Jikaki no Jutsu. He yelled, breathing out a large fireball towards the incoming wave of sand, but it wasn't quite as large as it should have been. Mika flapped both of her wings and directed two powerful gusts of wind at the blonde's jutsu, making it appear more dangerous and larger than before. The two attacks collided, resulting in an explosion that produced smoke to obscure what had occurred. Mika and her summoner decided not to go any further for the time being, fearing for their safety. Meanwhile, Temari and Kankuro's expressions alone from the other side show that they were completely stunned and had only one thought on their minds. What in the world is going on? When the smoke cleared, a very tall and thick block of crystallized glass was revealed beneath it. Naruto grinned, knowing that his plan had worked, despite the fact that the event had only served to shock Temari and Kankuro even more. Mika continued flying towards the giant tanuki, glancing down at Naruto. I'm guessing you have a plan to get rid of that glass, right? You know I can't get any closer to Shukaku with that in the way, right? Or do you need me to explain what's going on right now? She asked, groaning. Hopefully, Naruto isn't acting stupid right now. Oh, don't be concerned. Just keep going, I've got a plan. Is it true that you're having a bad day today? Is it because you have yet to return to the Summon Realm? Don't worry, you can return after this whole invasion thing. He exclaimed cheerfully. No, your stupidity takes precedence over your cleverness most of the time. I can't believe you, of all people, exhibit idiocy. She said it out loud in her head. Hey, I heard you. Mika raised an eyebrow in confusion as Naruto retorted. Naruto had no way of knowing what she was thinking. She then mentally shook her head, remembering that she can communicate with people telepathically. How come I'm still linked to him? She sighed inwardly. They were getting closer to the glass block they had made earlier. After all, Mika was a swift creature, roughly half the speed of Kumo's current raikage. To prepare his jutsu, the blonde Uzumaki performed a few hand seals. Hare, snake, bird, and tiger, Uchten, Tengoku no Kasen. Space release. Heavenly ray, he said, pointing to the glass and sending out a straight laser beam that hit the middle of the glass block. The attack left a small hole in it, as well as large cracks on the surface, indicating that the entire thing could shatter at any moment. Cover your eyes if you don't want shards of glass in them, Naruto warned, and Mika obeyed, but continued flying forward. Here I come. Making it rain. Naruto yelled as his right arm became completely covered in bright light, his meteor taking sole control of his arm. As they approached the glass, Naruto cocked his arm back and punched the glass straight on the hole he had created earlier with a loud cry. Because his jutsu increased his strength, the cracks that were already present on the block grew even larger, and in only a few seconds, the cracks reached the ends of the glass block. Shatter. Temari and Kankuro's jaws dropped as they witnessed Naruto demolish a large and thick block of glass with ease. The small bird-like creature carrying him didn't help either. They then saw the two fly through the hundreds of glass shards falling on the ground, and as they stared at the blonde's determined expression, it appeared as if it was raining due to the falling glass, with Naruto passing through it. When the two siblings noticed Naruto getting closer and closer to Gaara by the second, they snapped out of their trance. Of course, they couldn't let that happen because the entire invasion was designed to protect their younger brother. Kankuro, move your head to Gaara's left shoulder. We'll all go after him at the same time. We can't let him get to Gaara or it'll be game over. Temari gave the order, pointing to Naruto. Kankuro exclaimed, "Roger that," as he rushed past Shukaku's head and slid down to the beast's left shoulder. "Make the jump when I say so," she exclaimed loudly, and the puppet user responded with a thumbs up. "Ready," she began as Naruto approached them. "Now," she yelled as Kankuro and herself leapt from Shukaku's shoulders, heading for the blonde Uzumaki, who was now only a short distance away. "Would you mind blowing them away for me? To deal with them, I'm going to create some clones. They'll be a pain in the neck while I fight Gaara." Mika nodded and looked at Temari on her left and Kankuro on her right. "You're going down," screamed Temari as she blew 3 gusts of wind at Naruto with her giant fan. The phoenix narrowed her eyes at the eldest Sand sibling before exhaling a large fireball at her. The wind that was about to hit them was quickly absorbed by the fireball that was heading for Temari instead. She didn't expect the creature carrying Naruto to counter her attack, so she couldn't defend herself from the fireball. The fireball struck her in the head, causing her to fall to the ground. Kankuro noticed this, and it only served to exacerbate his hatred for Naruto. His sister can survive a fall from this height, but that doesn't mean she can do it without getting hurt. The puppet user began unwrapping the bandages of the puppet he was carrying on his back as he approached the blonde and the bird carrying him. "You cretin," Kankuro grumbled as he prepared chakra strings for his puppet, Karasu. "I'm going to make you pay." Naruto noticed this and brought his right foot up, kicking Kankuro away before Mika flapped her right wing, sending a strong gust of wind towards him. The attack cut him diagonally in the chest, tearing his clothes, but not enough to draw blood. He hissed in agony before noticing Naruto performing a familiar hand seal. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he exclaimed, creating 7 clones of himself slightly above him. Because they had nothing to fall back on, the clones began to fall, but not before forcing their way towards Kankuro. "I'm not going to let you get away." "Oh, shit," thought the puppet user as he felt something very hard hit his chest as he continued to fall towards the ground. His ribs felt like they were being crushed from the inside out. It didn't take long for him to feel the ground beneath him, indicating that he had indeed crashed. A Naruto clone activated his meteor only for his right foot and brought it down on Kankuro's chest, causing him to fall to the ground brutally. As soon as Kankuro stood up, another one activated his meteor, this time for his left knee as he kneed the puppet user in the gut, causing him to spit blood. For the next few seconds, the clones activated meteor and used it on various parts of his body, including his head for a headbutt, his elbow for an elbow smash, and his heel for an axe kick. This process was repeated 4 times more, each time with a different clone. It was amazing how his strength increased when Naruto used his meteor. The blonde used his meteor on his right fist for the final attack while waiting for Kankuro to rise. The Sand Nin forced himself onto all fours, before collapsing once more. The blows from Naruto hurt a lot more than he expected. He was afraid he would black out at any moment because his vision was blurred and he could barely stand. But, through sheer force of will, he managed to get back to his feet, but as soon as he did, he heard Naruto's voice. "Konoha ninja, don't underestimate us." Naruto charged towards Kankuro, cocking his fist. "Nanahoshi no Hantai," he yelled, punching the puppet user square in the chest, and Kankuro felt a few of his ribs break, sending him flying towards a tree, barely conscious. Naruto's clones then vanished one by one. Naruto smirked as he and Mika walked towards Gaara. "Two down, one to go," he grumbled, earning a stiff nod from his colleague. Shukaku fired another wave of sand at the pair, but Mika was able to avoid it. The beast tried again, but she was able to avoid it this time. This ordeal lasted a few minutes until the phoenix became exhausted. "Do you have any brilliant ideas, Naruto?" Mika asked, panting slightly. "I can't keep avoiding his attacks forever. It's only a matter of time before I tire." "Alright, I've got a plan, but it's risky." The phoenix cocked his brow at him. "Once we pass by his head, I need you to let go of me. He can't come at me from behind, can he?" His attention is drawn to the front. "I'm going to attack his tail because Kurama just told me that it's a weak point." "How come he didn't tell you that earlier?" she retorted in an irritated tone. "Is he certain about that? Is its tail its weak point? What if I followed your advice but it backfired?" Meanwhile, the mighty fox was fuming inside Naruto's head. "Who's the tailed beast here, you damn phoenix?" Mika let out a sigh after a few moments. "Let's get started on your plan." "I mean, I don't have anything planned." Before they could proceed, they heard something hissing in the distance. As the two partners turned their heads to see what was going on, it seemed to come from the direction of the village. Their eyes gradually widened as they noticed a massive snake appear near the center of Konoha and begin thrashing around violently, destroying houses in the process. "Oh, no," Mika's voice trailed off. "Damn it," Naruto clenched his teeth and made a hand seal. "What are you up to?" "Someone has to stop that snake, and I believe I know who." "Bunshin no Jutsu, Kage Bunshin." A clone of him appeared and immediately flew towards the village with Meteor. "What are his plans?" "You'll see. Come on, we can't let this minor incident derail our battle here, you know," said Naruto, and Mika only shrugged before carrying out Naruto's plan. "Uzumaki, die!" Shukaku roared, grabbing Naruto with both arms. Like Mika said, she couldn't keep avoiding everything forever, and the two of them were eventually hit by a massive swipe from the beast's hand. The force separated the phoenix from her summoner, with Naruto managing to keep himself from collapsing by channeling wind chakra to his feet, which caused him to levitate for a brief moment. The blonde raised her eyes to Shukaku, who was about to be crushed by the beast's massive hand. Naruto rolled out of the way and jumped on Shukaku's hand before running along his arm while performing some hand seals. Kaden. Hisenka no Jutsu means fire release, Phoenix Sage fire technique. Naruto fired multiple fireballs at Shukaku's head, which exploded upon impact, but the beast was unaffected. Shukaku then began to roar at the blonde, sending shockwaves his way, but Naruto dipped his kunai into Ichibi's arm to keep him where he was. Shukaku finally stopped roaring after a few seconds, prompting Naruto to go through some hand seals for another jutsu. Uchten. Dosei no Kyodai na Ringu. Space release. Giant Saturn rings, he yelled, creating two large energy discs in his palms before flying up in the air with his meteor, Shukaku staring at him. The kunai Naruto had stabbed into his arm earlier was still there, and it had a bunch of rather dangerous tags attached to its handle, unbeknownst to the beast. The sand made a mistake by messing with us, screamed Naruto as he hurled the 2 discs at Shukaku's tail, causing the beast to howl in pain. The blonde went through another set of hand seals quickly before his 2 hands became enveloped in blue flames. Uchtengan. Moru Susei. Space release. Blazing comet. He then flew back down with incredible speed, aiming for Shukaku's right arm. The beast, on the other hand, saw through Naruto's plan and attempted to catch the blonde in midair with his left arm, but before he could, he was distracted by Mika flying towards him from behind. The phoenix was immediately drawn to the explosive tag on Ichibi's arm. "I hope you know what you're doing, Naruto," she reflected as she took a deep breath. She then exhaled a small stream of fire as she approached Shukaku, the target being his arm. The attack hit the explosive tag, causing it to explode as the massive-tailed beast howled in pain at losing an arm once more. With no other options, Naruto rushed down and cocked his fist. "Here I come," he yelled, punching the back of the Ichibi's neck, which instantly caught fire. The second Naruto's attack hit, all the sand near its neck had disintegrated. "Uzumaki, you make me feel alive." The beast screeched and pushed Naruto off its neck, sending the blonde flying back into the vast forest, but he managed to stop himself by landing on a treetop. Naruto raised his head, wiping a trickle of blood from the side of his mouth. Shukaku had already extinguished the blue fire that threatened to consume all of his sand, but in return, the blonde noticed Gaara sleeping peacefully on top of his head, eyes closed. "Is that you, Gaara?" Naruto questioned himself. Why is he this way? Is he sleeping or what? Wasn't he in charge of the Ichibi's actions earlier? "I'm not sure, Kit," Kurama said from within his mind. "You should take a closer look, but be cautious. You can also cut his connection with Shukaku to put an end to this." "Disconnect his connection? What are you talking about?" Naruto was perplexed. "Okay, I know you're not that dumb, Kit, so use your brain to figure this out, or I'll stop supplying you with chakra." Naruto paled and nodded several times before drifting off to his own thoughts. "Should I cut his connection?" he pondered. "How am I going to do that? He's not going to wake up and detach himself, is he? I mean, how can I even lay a hand on him if..." He came to a halt when he realized what he had just said. "Wait a minute, detach? That's all. I've decided what I'm going to do. I sure hope this ends the fight," the blonde thought determinedly. He then returned his attention to reality and noticed that Shukaku hasn't moved an inch since Gaara unexpectedly appeared on the beast's head. It's the brow, to be precise. He hasn't moved. Good. That means I can go ahead with this plan. His body began to glow as he stared at Gaara's unconscious state. It's time to call it quits. Meteor, Raisei. He took to the air and flew towards Gaara. "This is where it all ends, Gaara," he yelled as he approached the redhead. But the blonde's eyes widened in surprise when Gaara opened his eyes and formed the ram seal with his hands. Naruto turned his head to the left and right to see 2 long sand whips rush towards him and grab him on both sides of his body. The blonde struggled to break free from the grip of the sand, but it was futile. He'd been apprehended. And no way, he said to himself. He never imagined it could happen, but it did. Gaara was able to capture and immobilize him, even with his meteor activated the entire time. "You cretin!" Naruto screamed as he tried everything he could to break free from the sand's grip. "You coward, let me go and fight like a man. Die." Gaara screamed angrily, sending a massive wave of sand from Shukaku's skin towards Naruto. Naruto could still move his hands beneath the sand that was binding him moments before the sand hit. Using all of his strength, He managed to slide his arms towards each other and began quickly going through a series of hand seals behind him. Boar, hare, ram, tiger, bird, hare, ox, monkey, Uchtengan, Corona. Space launch, Corona. The sand binding instantly exploded, releasing him as a reddish-like aura encircled him. Naruto resumed his attack after the sand that was about to approach him disintegrated. "You've irritated me for the last time," he yelled, clashing with Gaara while his meteor was still active. Because his strength had increased while in that state, the redhead looked shocked before blood began to trickle from the side of his head. Crack, 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 crack. Shukaku's skin became wet all of a sudden, and huge cracks appeared on it. Naruto jumped away and landed on a treetop, watching what was going on with Gaara. While it was happening, the redhead maintained a shocked expression on his face. Soon after, the sand that appeared to have built the tailed beast broke down, trapping Gaara. Wait a minute, this isn't over yet. Naruto paused to catch his breath. He's not going down easily. As soon as he realized this, Ichibi's Jinchuriki jumped out of Shukaku's remains and landed on the top of a treetop opposite Naruto. I knew it. Gaara's appearance had changed drastically from before. His sand armor had disintegrated and was not reforming around his body. He was covered in cuts and bruises and appeared to require immediate medical attention. He was barely balancing on the treetop he was standing on, and to top it all off, he was back to his normal self, breathing heavily in exhaustion. Still, the redhead scowled menacingly at Naruto, and the blonde did the same. The intense stare-down lasted a few more moments before the blonde spoke, giving in to his own thoughts at the time. "I've had it with you," screamed Naruto, leaping from the tree he was standing on and charging at Gaara, cocking his arm back. "I swear I'm going to beat you right now. I told you I'd show you my existence, Uzumaki." Gaara roared, succumbing to his mother's inner desires to kill Naruto as he jumped off the tree he was standing on. He already had all of his remaining sand with him, but when he looked at Naruto's attacking figure, his eyes widened when the blonde was replaced by a familiar sight. It was someone Gaara was all too familiar with. He had sand-colored blonde hair that was cut short. He had violet eyes and fair skin, which gave him the appearance of a woman. He was dressed in a dark blue kimono and gray pants, and he was smiling warmly at Gaara, his arms spread wide open, as if he was about to hug the redhead. "Let me assist you, Master Gaara," said the person. "You can't do it by yourself." Why Yoshimaru?" Gaara exclaimed in disbelief in his thoughts. But before he could do anything, he felt something hard hit his throat, causing him to have difficulty breathing. "Rainmaker! Rainmaker!" yelled Naruto, slamming the Rainmaker lariat into Gaara in midair. The blonde let out a triumphant roar before the force of his attack flung Gaara several meters back, crashing on the ground, his eyes and mouth wide open in shock, finally defeated. Mika began to fly back towards Naruto's location after the mighty Ichibi vanished unexpectedly. She decided to take a breather somewhere else earlier after assisting Naruto in removing the beast's arm because assisting her partner in combat while carrying him in the air could tire her out. Although she had no trouble carrying Naruto, doing so while using her powers was a new experience for her, and it took its toll. It appears that Naruto isn't the only one who requires training. The Phoenix mused. "How degrading, I couldn't keep up with his stamina in combat and yet I'm supposed to be the one supporting him." She climbed a little higher to get a better view of the forest below. With Shukaku gone, what else could be the battlefield for Naruto and Gaara but the ground? She then noticed two figures below her and dove down to get a better look. Her eyebrows rose when she saw Naruto remove his hoodie and place it under the unconscious Gaara for support after landing on a nearby tree branch. When Naruto noticed her, he gave an embarrassed grin that was met with a smirk from the Phoenix. 30 minutes ago, the arena. What happened? Sakura Haruno's first words came out of her mouth. She had just awoken from a genjutsu, and it was all thanks to her superior chakra control. She looked around and saw Sasuke, Zabuza, and Haku each fighting two sound shinobi. She rose slowly to her feet before rubbing her temples to relieve a headache. "Sakura!" exclaimed Haku as she hurled needles at the ninja she was fighting before finishing him off with a punch. She dashed over to Sakura and tightly hugged her. "Good girl, I'm glad you're awake." Sakura raised an eyebrow at her surroundings after the ice user drew away. She noticed that almost everyone in the crowd was sleeping, and that some were fighting with each other every second. Shikamaru, Ino, Kiba, and the other genins were all dozing nearby. "What's going on, Haku-sensei? Why is everyone sleeping, and why are you battling a swarm of ninjas from another village?" "I can't say much about it, Sakura, but we're at war right now. The Sand and the Sound are leading an attack on Konoha." "What?" exclaimed the Pinkette, taken aback. "But why?" "We don't know right now, but you must fight and keep your head in the game." "Got it?" she finished, and Zabuza and Sasuke both looked at Sakura, done with their opponents. "Hello, sensei." She determinedly nodded as Kakashi arrived on the scene via Shunshin. "Kakashi-sensei!" exclaimed Sasuke and Sakura at the same time. "Hey, Hataki." Zabuza was upset. "What have you been doing? You were with us not long ago, and then you vanished." "I apologize," the masked Junin said, slightly bowing his head. "However, the me who was with you earlier was just a clone," he continued, eliciting surprised looks from all four of them. "I was near the village's gates, preparing our forces for the impending invasion. Even before the semi-finals round of the third test, I, Hokage-sama, and a few others were aware of this, and we needed to act quickly. It's a good thing we're ready," he explained, hoping that would put the four people in front of him at ease. "And why aren't we told about it?" Sasuke retorted, irritated at not being able to demonstrate his power to his peers. "We could have aided. We simply had to keep it hidden so that our enemies didn't discover we knew. You showed me my blood." A thunderous roar echoed in the distance, ringing in their ears. Sakura's spine tingled because she had never heard anything like that before. "Sensei, what did we just hear?" she stuttered, looking up at Kakashi slowly. "It has to be Gaara," Kakashi said, stroking his chin with his fingers. However, that wasn't his original voice just now. It must mean that he has transformed into the Ichibi, one tail, within him. He continued, drawing stunned looks from everyone. What are we going to do now? If we can't deal with him, we're doomed." Pinkette inquired frantically. She may have grown stronger, but a tailed beast as an opponent is way out of her league and would mean certain death if she wasn't careful. Furthermore, who knows what kind of power a tailed beast possesses? She's heard the stories about the Kyuubi attacking the village years ago, and how the monster was only stopped thanks to the fourth Hokage. That must imply that a Bijuu's tailed beast's power is beyond their comprehension. "Don't worry, Sakura," Kakashi reassured with a thumbs up and a wink. "I told you we were prepared for this, and I'm confident Naruto will handle Gaara." Sasuke grimaced. "Are you telling me, Uchiha, that the Dobi knew about this instead of me?" He almost screamed, a tick mark appearing on his head as he clutched his own hair. "I could have been a more dependable asset in this situation. That moron could be the reason for our defeat. There are reasons why Naruto is the best person to handle Gaara, Sasuke," said Kakashi solemnly. "Now, wake up your classmates and form groups. Your mission is to assist in the evacuation of civilians to shelters. Your top priority is their safety. Go." After hearing those words, Sakura went to wake up their classmates, while Sasuke seemed hesitant for a second before giving in. Zabuza, Haku, Your job is to assist the enemy shinobi in any way you can, Kakashi said, turning to face the two ex-mercenaries. Hi! Exclaimed Haku before taking off to assist in the fight against the sand and sound ninjas advancing on the village. Like you have to ask, Zabuza muttered, cracking his knuckles before kicking a sound ninja in the family jewels who he felt was behind him before jumping down to the arena to draw the attention of all the enemies around him. Of course, he was a fighter, and what better way to fight than to draw the enemy's attention? At the same time, at the cage box. After seeing Gaara partially transform into his tailed beast form, Orochimaru made a small gesture to the nearby sand village spies, allowing them to begin the invasion. The cage box erupted in smoke, prompting the Hokage's 4 bodyguards to surround him in defense of the village's leader. They all jumped to the roof of a nearby building. Their eyes widened as they noticed the cage's 4 bodyguards taking up positions on the 4 corners of the roof they were standing on. Because of the symbol on their forehead protector, each of the bodyguards removed all of their garments, revealing themselves to be shinobi from the sound. They all did the same hand seals at the same time. Ninpi. Shishienjin. Ninja art. 4 purple flames formation. They all shouted at the same time, forming a purple barrier that surrounded the entire rooftop. Hiruzen and his 4 bodyguards were inside the barrier, as was Jiraiya, who had surprisingly been following his sensei earlier, having arrived after scouting the outskirts of Konoha for possible ambushes. They were all trapped inside. An impediment, huh? Jiraiya muttered as he looked around the rooftop, shaking his head to the left and right. Not bad, Orochimaru, not at all. Jiraiya-kun! Exclaimed Hiruzen, taken aback. He counted 5 of them on the rooftop the last time he looked. When did you arrive? I just followed where you were going, Sensei, Jiraiya explained. I had just finished my task regarding possible ambushes carried out by the enemy during this invasion, and as far as I know, nobody is ambushing anyone. Then, as I was about to report to you, I noticed you jumping to this rooftop, and I simply followed you out of curiosity. Congratulations, my boy. It is encouraging to hear that our adversaries have no plans for ambushes today. It appears that they are tackling this head-on. But we have our hands full right now because we have to deal with Orochimaru. Obviously. According to the ninjas who built this barrier, they're shinobi from Oto. Last I heard from my spies, Orochimaru runs that place. Where the hell is that snake fucker? Inquired one of Hiruzen's bodyguards. For the time being, a brief moment of silence followed. He's right over there. Jiraiya indicated another rooftop opposite the one they were standing on. The cage stood there with his hat on, his face hidden from view. He bit his thumb, drawing blood, after a few seconds of staring at the people inside the barrier. He then performed several hand seals before slamming his palm into the ground. Boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram, Kuchios no Jutsu. Summoning technique. 2 enormous snakes appeared in a puff of smoke and began thrashing around violently, destroying houses along the way. Oh, shit, clever reasoning, Jiraiya made a remark. While I'm inside this barrier, I can't summon Gamabunta or any of the toads. Everyone looked at him in disbelief. We'll just have to hope for the best then. He grumbled, silently telling himself to trust a certain blonde-haired ninja to save him. Close to the academy. Everyone, get moving! Yelled Sakura to the throngs of children fleeing the academy. The enemy made a wise decision to target the children so that Konoha would focus on evacuating. But, as Kakashi mentioned, the village was well prepared for it, and there was even an Anbu squad guarding the school before the sound ninja arrived. How many children do you have, Anbu-san? After seeing the last of the children leave the academy for evacuation, Sakura looked at the nearest Anbu to her. Girl, the academy is clear. The Anbu responded in a deep, low voice. The evacuation went smoothly, and no other children were injured. You should relocate and continue to assist in the evacuation of civilians. This will be taken care of. Sakura nodded and turned to the opposite direction before running back towards the village's main street, near the center. I should check on the health of my family as well, she reasoned as she walked toward her house. I need to make sure they're safe. Before she could continue running, she noticed two familiar faces conversing with each other. Haku-sensei. Naruto. She called out, catching their attention, before making her way towards the two. What are you discussing right now? She went on, her eyebrow raised in confusion. Perfect timing, Sakura. Exclaimed Haku, motioning for her to approach, and the pinkette agreed. So, what exactly is it? This Naruto clone told me that the Sand Kid's siblings are both down, Haku told her. I need you to accompany me to the outside of the village where the real Naruto and the Sand Kid are fighting. According to this clone, they both tried to prevent Naruto from harming their little brother, but they paid the price. Sakura's expression abruptly changed to one of fear. Wait, you're not worried about us getting caught up in Gaara and Naruto's fight, Haku-sensei? You should also think about your own safety. Don't worry, Sakura-chan. Exclaimed the clone, thumbs up. Boss is pleased with Gaara. He's currently kicking that guy's $1, so you don't have to worry about anything. Just deal with his brother and sister, and once they're gone, we'll be able to stop the invasion more easily because they'll be 3 genins short. The pupils of Haku and Sakura dilated. Not because he said it would be easier to stop the approaching invasion, but because he said Naruto is fighting on par with Gaara, who had already transformed into his tailed beast form. Pinkette was the first to shake herself awake from her trance. Seriously? Hey, you may be a clone, but are you sure Naruto can handle Gaara on his own? What could possibly happen to him? The clone simply smirked and shook his head before walking past them, oblivious to Sakura's protest. He spoke first, before the Pinkette could even complain about Naruto's ignorance. Just trust in me, Sakura-chan. There are many things about me that you still don't know. Sure, you now know the secret behind my real eyes, but I still have a lot more secrets up my sleeve. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to attend to something. He came to a halt for a moment as he was enveloped in yellow light. If you don't want our village to win, you should just do what I say. Later. He finished by taking off with his meteor. Sakura was left hanging by what Naruto had just said when she felt a tug on her dress. She turned to face the one who had done it and saw Haku with a serious expression on her face. Come on, Sakura. We'll follow Naruto's instructions. Let's go find those 2 miscreants outside the village. The Pinkette said nothing and simply nodded before fleeing to follow Haku. As he stepped on the large pile of shinobis on the ground, Zabuza wiped the sweat from his brow. He dispatched every ninja who dared to enter the arena and fight him before piling up the bodies to make it look like his own achievement. I'm the king of the world! Exclaimed Zabuza, lifting Kabikiraboch in triumph into the air. I have defeated every single worthy opponent. He boasted in a manly tone. Everything was going swimmingly until he heard a voice from behind him. How disappointing! Muttered the shinobi from behind him, prompting the former mercenary to look back in confusion. The shinobi wore a regular shinobi flak jacket and a Suna forehead protector to demonstrate his allegiance. He had 2 distinct red markings on the right side of his face, while the left side was covered by a sheet hanging from the top of a turban-like hat on his head. Baki was the Sand siblings' teacher. Momochi Zabuza, what happened to you? He spoke with a surprised tone. The 7 swordsmen of the mist were all honorable shinobi, but you chose to side with an adversary. Where is your devotion to your community? Did the Leaf's inhabitants mess with your mind in any way? Zabuza narrowed his eyes in rage at that last statement before the Sand Nin continued. A shame. I used to admire you for your combat abilities and unwavering loyalty to the Mizukage and Kiri. You're now nothing more than a pawn in the hands of our adversary.
Look, I'm glad to know I have a fan from another village, and that's 'cause I'm awesome, he said, shrugging, before raising his massive sword to point it at Baki.
But if you try to speak ill of Konoha again, Sand Nin, I'll make sure you know your place. Do I hear a threat, demon of the hidden mist? Baki asked, pulling out a kunai and assuming his battle stance. It's called reality, boy. Zabuza walked away, his sword sunk into the ground by its blade. Baki versus Zabuza. Baki narrowed his eyes and charged towards Zabuza, his hand firmly gripping his weapon. To avoid the sand attack, Nins the Demon of the Mist simply spun around and kicked his opponent in the back before grabbing Kabikiraboch and attempting to strike Baki down with it. Baki recovered quickly after being kicked away, and he used his own kunai to clash with Zabuza's massive sword. After a few moments, they were both displaying equal amounts of strength by refusing to give in. Zabuza snickered and broke the stalemate between them by leaping away, causing Baki to collapse on his knees from the exertion of too much force and strength on his previous attack. As he made the seal of confrontation, the former mercenary smirked beneath the cloth covering his mouth. Kirigakure no Jutsu, hidden mist technique, he exhaled, causing a thick layer of mist to appear all over the arena, making Baki's vision blurry. I can't see anything, he's true to his name. Baki thought as he felt a sharp pain in his back, causing him to yelp softly. He reached behind him with his right hand and felt the sharp edges of a shuriken stick to him. As he yanked the 3 projectiles off his back, he took a deep breath and resisted the pain. He was too focused on finishing the last one to notice Zabuza sneak up on him from behind and deliver 3 punches to his face, sending the Sand Nin flying back. Baki gritted his teeth before utilizing his chakra to manipulate the wind around him, blowing away most of the mist in the process. He repeated this 2 more times until the mist was completely gone, but Zabuza was nowhere to be found. Show yourself, Zabuza Momochi. He yelled angrily, while preparing a batch of shuriken. Suiridan no Jutsu. Water style. Water dragon technique. Zabuza yelled from the other side of the arena, summoning a massive water dragon. How do you like me now? He exclaimed, directing his jutsu at Baki, who appeared to be frozen in place. The Sand Nin exploded into a cloud of smoke just as the water dragon struck him, widening Zabuza's eyes in surprise.
After his entire attack, a tree log was left in Baki's place, completely soaked from the former mercenary's technique.
When Zabuza felt someone's chakra behind him, he raised his massive sword to defend himself, which brought him into conflict with none other than Baki, who simply used the substitution jutsu to avoid the demon of the mist's attack. This time, there was no deadlock. Because of his earlier state of surprise, Zabuza was clearly losing this simple display of power. Baki's raw strength brought him to his knees despite his large sword. But, before he was further harmed, Zabuza broke away and jumped back to put some distance between the two of them. Baki reacted immediately when he saw Zabuza perform the seal of confrontation. I'm not going to fall for that again. He exclaimed, emitted wind chakra on his fingertips before manipulating them into a nearly invisible disc that appeared deadly sharp. Kei's no Yeba. Windblade. He exclaimed, launching his attack at his adversary, which managed to hit Zabuza on his right elbow, preventing him from using the hidden mist technique and causing him to cry out in pain. There's plenty more where that came from. Baki yelled, summoning 2 more windblades and hurling them at the former Kiri Nin, one hitting him on the left leg and the other on the right cheek. As Zabuza fell to his knees and bowed down in agony, blood spurted from his wounds. Like I said. A shame you're now nothing more than a pawn to the enemy, Baki grumbled as he approached the man he admired back then. What became of your honor, Zabuza Momochi? You should be fighting for your Mizukage in your home village right now, but instead you're here, merciless in my hands. You've become frail. This is my home. Zabuza whispered something that Baki's ears picked up on. And I am a shinobi of the leaf. He yelled, terrifyingly looking up at his foe, causing Baki to take a step back in fear. Zabuza exploded into water before he realized it, revealing it to be a clone, sending the sand nin flying back with great speed as he took the full impact. With a smirk, the real Zabuza waited behind him. Nice to meet you, my #1 fan. You should not have let your emotions take over, he said as he flew by, giving Baki a chop across the back of his neck, causing him to fall to the ground unconscious. Zabuza brushed the dust and dirt off his clothes before taking in the entire arena, including all of the shinobis he fought in the sleeping crowd as a result of the genjutsu cast on them. Yup, my work here is done. He thought to himself as he began to walk away. I wonder where I should go next to add to my high score? He thought to himself as he walked. With Sakura. Before leaving, the Pinkette and Haku went in opposite directions to make their search for Gaara's siblings easier. Sakura chose the left side, while Haku selected the right. The Pinkette hoped she wouldn't have to deal with a crazy redhead, but she also wanted to help her teammate deal with him. I need to stay focused, she told herself. I need to believe in Naruto. He can do it. He can deal with Gaara. Sakura discovered one of the Sand siblings, barely conscious, leaning on a tree trunk a few minutes later. Tamari appeared to be about to pass out at any moment, and due to Sakura's caring and kind nature toward others, she walked closer to the wind user, ignoring the potential danger that awaited her. Tamari? Are you all right? Kneeling in front of the girl, she inquired. Please respond if you can hear me. Tamari. She still received no response. Don't worry, I'll call for assistance. Everything is going to be fine. We could be friends, you know. You're going to be. Tamari's right hand wrapped around her neck cut off her voice before she could continue. Tamari's chuckling followed. Did you really believe I'd let you assist me? She asked smugly, but her tone indicated that she was not feeling well at the time. You're mistaken, Haruno. I'm assuming you're concerned about your teammate, am I correct? Sakura paused for a moment to get a better look at the Pinkette's face, but she didn't budge. You ought to be. Because Gaara will have his blood any moment now, and we will be victorious. Sakura's right fist collided with her stomach before she could finish her sentence. The wind user coughed in agony before gradually releasing Sakura from her grasp. She then collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Sakura frowned at Tamari's lifeless appearance. For taking advantage of me. She hissed, grabbing the sand right Nin's arm. You're lucky I'm taking you back to recover, but you forced me to do this the hard way. She finished, dragging Tamari back to the village by her arm. Not long after, the Pinkette crossed paths with Haku again. Konkuro was found by the ice user, though he was in a more comfortable position than his sister. Sakura introduced herself as Haku-sensei. Konkuro is encased in ice for a reason. Did he respond in any way? Haku raised her head.
No, he was unconscious when I discovered him. I just threw him in because I didn't want to take any chances, she explained, and her student nodded.
What about that young lady?
Had a difficult time with her.
Is this the reason you're dragging her right now?
No, she was simply attempting to take advantage of me when all I wanted to do was assist her.
With one blow, I knocked her out. Finally, I'm dragging her around because she irritated me.
She revealed, making Haku chuckle at the Pinkette's demeanor.
Let's just go, sensei, before I get even more pissed off with this girl. She said as she glanced at the unconscious Tamari before continuing on their way back. Naruto's clone. Naruto landed on a rooftop near the two massive snakes that Orochimaru had just summoned. I know you don't want to be disturbed right now, but this is an emergency, boss. He reasoned before biting his right thumb to draw blood and performing a few hand seals. Boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. He then slammed his right palm against the rooftop on which he was standing. Kuchios no Jutsu. He yelled, causing a large cloud of smoke to erupt around him, concealing the entire rooftop and a few perimeters around it from the civilian sight. After the smoke cleared, a massive toad appeared out of nowhere. The toad was red, with brighter red markings on certain parts of his body, such as around his eyes and lips. On his left eye, he also had a scar similar to Kakashi's. He was dressed in a large blue happy vest with Ebi, written in kanji on the back.
He smoked from an enormous Kaizaru pipe while wearing a large dosu blade around his hip.
Hey, what am I doing here?
The toad inquired, surveying his surroundings.
Nice to see you again, boss. Waving his arm from atop the toad's head, Naruto said.
I really need your help this time, and I assure you that it's as serious as you are.
Please lend us your assistance. That depends, boy, said the toad. Tell me more, and we'll come up with something. You'd better make sure this is serious.
I'm not in a good mood today, so make sure this counts. Naruto then proceeded to tell him the entire ordeal that was taking place.
Everything, the invasion, the sand, the two snakes. However, it appears that the toad boss isn't taking it well. You expect me to do what? Gamabunta asked, surprised by Naruto's request. What exactly is the big deal? Naruto replied with a shrug. Aren't you the legendary toad boss? This entire ordeal should be nothing more than child's play for someone like you. Gamabunta raised his head. That's no excuse for forcing me to fight two massive snakes. One is enough of a problem. Naruto rolled his eyes and sighed, exasperated and irritated. Oh, please, boss. Stop being such a drama queen, there are people's lives at stake. Remember, you arrogant brat, that you're asking for my assistance here. If I wanted to, I could just go back home, boy. He scowled at the blonde on top of him. I promise I'll get you a bottle of the best sake after this, the blonde said, frowning at the toad's obstinacy. Gamabunta made a few shaky motions with his head and clicked his tongue. If you want me to comply this time, you'll have to sweeten the pot even more. Come on, I'll wait. Uzumaki, the blonde, frowned in frustration. Seriously? The village is on the verge of extinction, and all you're doing here is extracting as many benefits as possible in exchange for your assistance? I can't believe Ero Sennin praised you so highly. Good try, kid. But I've been through and seen enough to make emotional blackmail work. Remember that Jiraiya is just messing with you. In annoyance, the blonde snapped his fingers. Shit. It's worth a shot. Then he sighed.
So I'd better send you back if you're not going to help.
I'll just call Mika and ask her to assist me. Gamabunta raised his head and looked up. I never said I wouldn't help you, boy. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise.
Wait, what?
He exclaimed, taken aback by what the toad had just said to him. I just said the enemy would be difficult to deal with. I never said I wouldn't fight. Jiraiya is correct. You are a moron. But you. Gamabunta inhaled his cigarette. Of course, the question of what I get in exchange for my assistance remains. But I suppose we can work something out after we stop the invasion. Naruto's sad expression changed to a mischievous grin. Gamabunta, I like your fashion sense. The Toad's leader smirked as well. Jiraiya said something similar, "Kid. Let me deal with these jerks now," he exclaimed as he unsheathed his blade. "Oh yeah," Naruto stated as his body became enveloped in bright light. "I have faith in you, boss. Now I'm going to settle this with the person responsible for this invasion. Thanks." He then flew away with his meteor, clearly intent on completing things once and for all. At the same time as Hiruzen and the others, the Hokage, along with Jiraiya and his bodyguards, saw Gamabunta appear out of nowhere and began fighting off the two giant snakes summoned by Orochimaru. They all had conflicting feelings. Hiruzen was taken aback at first, but assumed it was his pseudo-grandson who was responsible. Jiraiya smirked as his student applied what he had learned during his month of training, while the four bodyguards were perplexed as to how the Toad appeared out of nowhere. "It appears that things have gotten more interesting now, Kukakuku," a voice said, capturing the attention of everyone else inside the barrier. When they turned around to see who it was none other than the Cage himself. Hiruzen noticed the cage outside the barrier exploding in a cloud of smoke, revealing him to be nothing more than a shadow clone. The Hokage returned his attention to the one in front of them and took a deep breath. "Drop the mask, Orochimaru," he said softly. "We recognize you." "Smart as ever, Sarutobi," said the Cage, taking off his clothes to reveal a smirking Orochimaru beneath. After a few moments of staring at his former teacher, he smiled at Jiraiya. "Jiraiya, hasn't it been a long time? How are things going for you these days? It's great to see you." "You're not fooling anyone with that act, Orochimaru," Jiraiya said, narrowing his eyes at his former teammate. "Better get started than keep us waiting forever, you know." The snake Sannin paused for a moment before smirking. "Jiraiya, that's a great idea. Let's get this out of the way." He smiled sadistically, but before he could say anything, he was interrupted by the loud sound of something shattering. Shatter. Naruto's unmistakable figure broke through the purple-like barrier that was circling the rooftop, landing safely beside the Hokage and Jiraiya as the yellow light covering his body began to fade. "How the fuck did he manage to break his way in?" exclaimed Tayuya, stunned. "Try asking him yourself," Sakin grumbled. With a jutsu that uses his eyes, Naruto-kun was able to break through a barrier. Orochimaru sighed in contentment. "Yes, keep it up, and you'll pique my interest. You will be an even more deserving vessel for me. I'll reach my goal simply by acquiring those eyes." "Hey, Gigi," said the blonde boy. "Is this guy bothering you?" he asked, pointing to Orochimaru. "Don't worry, I'll get this done quickly so we don't have to worry about anything." His fists were then covered in blue flames from his blazing comet. "Hey, dude," he exclaimed to Orochimaru. "We'd better give up now or do it the hard way. There is no way you can win right now." "Young fool," Orochimaru said. "You are the one at a disadvantage." As a skilled strategist, Orochimaru isn't one to charge into battle without a plan, so he's well prepared for situations like this. Tiger, snake, dog, and dragon, he walked through the hand seals, clapping his palms together. Kuchios. Edo Tensai. Summoning. Impure world reincarnation. He yelled, causing 3 coffins to rise from the ground. Jiraiya and Hiruzen's eyes widened in surprise, prompting Naruto to raise an eyebrow in confusion. The middle coffin opened first, albeit slowly. It also slowly opened, revealing the figure of a certain redhead shinobi who had been thought to be dead for years. She walked out slowly, and the first thing she said was, "And Naruto?" Naruto appeared stunned. Jiraiya and Hiruzen, his bodyguards, were also frozen in place. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths were agape at what they were witnessing. Orochimaru smirked, believing he had gained access to their minds. Against all odds, Naruto was the first to awaken from his near-invincible trance. Ka-san? When she heard that voice, the figure's eyes widened and she looked up to the direction where she heard her only son's voice. "Is that you, Naruto?" inquired the unmistakable voice of Kushina Uzumaki. The blonde's stunned expression quickly turned to rage as he clenched his fists and glared at Orochimaru. "You snake bastard!" he screamed, his Uchtengan blazing as he locked his gaze on Orochimaru with murderous intent. "You will pay for my mother's disrespect. How are you going to use my family against me?"
That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.